Hey y'all, so I am so sorry that we did not do a video last week, but as you know, this is a Wednesday show for the girls and came on Wednesday. Thanksgiving was on Thursday, baby. Like I needed to just have me a little bit of a Thanksgiving break. So, but we're back. But for the record, I did enjoy last week's episode quite a bit. I got to watch it in my parents' basement, snuggled up, minding my business, didn't have to take any notes, and didn't have to say anything about it. So it was great. But we are here to review the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I did also enjoy this episode, I'll say at the forefront. However, it was really dragged the hell out, like dragged to hell. And I'm like, why is this taking so long? And there were so many commercials. But my only big question is, like, why does Kyle keep calling Sutton off? Like, I don't know why it offends me so much, but I just don't like it. Like, the insinuation there of being off, it just feels weird to me. Obviously, we know towards the end of the episode that Sutton did end up saying herself that she was off, but I don't know. When Kyle was saying it, it just felt like she was trying to be weird and trying to do what she's accusing Sutton of doing, but we'll also get into that. So then she's like, what do you think it is? And it feels like she was just setting up the volleyball for, Dorit to come in with the bullshit, which she did. And Dorit's like, well, Sutton's a drinker. So that starts putting pieces together for me because we got that clip of, what's that lady's name? Is it Tinsley or something like that or whatever the hell? And she was at BravoCon and she was at Watch What Happens Live. She was somewhere talking and saying some stuff. And she basically said that, insinuated that Sutton was a drinker or whatever the heck. And so now it's happening on the season. So I'm like, obviously the season happened before the Watch What Happens Live, but I'm like, I wonder if this is a chatter amongst the ladies. So, Dorit says that, and I like that Crystal has clocked in. Like, Crystal was fully clocked in the confessionals and in the season, like in the filming this episode. And she's like, well, I don't know, because whenever I see Sutton, she tends to be fine. I feel like that was a pretty good I don't know mimic of Crystal. I wasn't even trying to get into her like that, but I feel like I sounded just like her. She's like, she always seems fine to me. Like, she's like, I'm not gonna get really involved in this because that's crazy. And she's reading the girls because she's like, Kyle, you just stopped drinking yesterday, and Dorit, you've been talking about your drink order for the last 17 seasons. Like, girl, whatever. We then move on to like get the different perspective, and Sutton is meeting up with Garcelle, and she's talking about the Kyle thing as well, and she's letting her know, Kyle hurt my feelings, and she was taking up for Erica when I brought up the whole elevator thing, and Garcelle's like, yeah, I'm sure that hurt your feelings. They're kind of just going back and forth about that, and she gets to a point where she, kind of like I said, is saying the same thing about Kyle. Like, it kind of felt like Kyle was being weird to me, essentially, and Garcelle's like, well, you probably hit a nerve, because Sutton's like, I was just asking her, like, was there something going on? Like, there was a lot of weirdness, and Garcelle's like, well, you probably hit a nerve, like, you probably hit the nail right on the head. So she was fighting back, and that's exactly what was happening. But we get more tea and Sutton, because Sutton's like, I don't miss a thing, and she said that to Kyle's face when they were on FaceTime, and she's like, she just noticed that Kyle had on this new ring, like, I guess she was wearing, and I think it was on her wedding finger. I didn't fully clock and accept that, but I guess she was wearing a ring, but then she ended up getting a new one, and Sutton clocked it, and she's wondering, like, she and Garcelle are wondering, oh, is this like a makeup gift that Mauricio got her because of the weirdness that's going on in their marriage? Valid question, I guess. Low-hanging fruit, abso-freaking-lutely, but valid question, I guess. I really just don't care. The best part of the scene, though, was Garcelle. Like, easily getting in on Dorit. She was honestly on Dorit's neck the entire episode, and I was living for it. Can't wait to hear Dorit whine about it all season long.
The only time I noticed jewelry is when, after the robbery, Dorit still had hers.
I guess, like, the big reason why I don't care is because of exactly how Sutton kind of ended this out. She's like, at the end of the day, Kyle is deflecting, and she's not wanting to admit the rumors are out there. She's not being honest, as Kyle always says. And I would have to agree with that, but I think that's obvious. Like, I think that Kyle is always kind of, like, full of a little bit of BS, so maybe that's why I'm just not invested, because it's like, it's Kyle, so of course. We then get an interesting scene with Erica. I don't really know what her storyline is supposed to be this season. I guess it's like a cleanup type of thing or whatever, and I think it's very easy for her not to be a villain when she doesn't have the support or the back of Lisa Rinna to hide behind, so I guess. I also understand that she went back and did her Vegas show, or I think it was in Vegas, I'm not sure, which is great, but I guess she needed some type of segue into that, that or getting back into that. I'm not sure. But it seems like she's, discussing her image, and the lady even tells her, like, well, you have to take accountability for your part in things. And they flash back to her apology to the ladies on episode 1. And she's like, I want to get to performing again. So it just feels like a cleanup season. And okay, whatever. I will say, though, like, her kind of like, whatever vibe, it's consistent. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's Erica's personality. And I will say it's more nasty when it was utilized the way that it used to be utilized, about like the Tom situation. She's like, I really just don't care. Bad place to use it. Here in this season, where the ladies are kind of like arguing and you're kind of at the outskirts of it and you're like, I don't care, I can enjoy that. I really liked seeing, because I definitely had this fear that, like, oh, I don't know how these storylines are going to carry us through the season. But I do like seeing Garcelle have this with her son. I do think that with ladies, like cast members like this that don't necessarily have that big alliance within the group, within the cast, and they can't really lean on all of them. Like, Garcelle only has Sutton, right? So there's only so much that you can do there, and Garcelle doesn't necessarily beef with those ladies, but she doesn't also necessarily get along with them, right? And so she needs something, and I think for cast members like that, it's always nice to see them with their family, because 9 times out of 10, they're really close with their family because that's who they're hanging out with. And so I like being able to see Garcelle, really open up and show her sons and have these different relationships with her sons and have a conversation with him as not only her son, not only as a minor, a child, whatever you want to call him, teenager, but also as a person, as a human being, and acknowledging that she needs to listen to him and learn from him and things like that. So I'm fine with that storyline. I'm invested. I'm enjoying it. What I don't know is, like, I would like to get the inner workings of how this happened and why it's happening, who, where, and why. Like, why is this Lady Morgan even on the show, right? If we're wanting, we meaning Kyle and gang, whoever is in that team, if we're wanting to say these are just rumors, we just want to dispel rumors, not a big deal, not dating Morgan, why is it that you are? And not only did it really kind of layered up for me like a cake. Like, why? So we're getting a flashback of Mauricio having an issue with you having 5 tattoos that he did not know about. And now you're at the tattoo parlor with your alleged mistress, I guess we would call her. I don't know. I'm not sure. But your alleged something that you shouldn't have while you're married, I guess. And you're getting a tattoo, again, behind Mauricio's back. And you're doing it on camera on this TV show. Like, I'm so confused. And they do absolutely nothing to, again, I don't know the why, right? Like, I don't know why she's here. So they do nothing to dispel the rumors, though. Like, they talk about how they met, and it's that, I guess Morgan is a musician, and Kyle checked her on the gram and DM'd her like, oh, I love your music. So they just became so close, and now they have so much in common because, oh my gosh, like, look, so ironically, like, Morgan doesn't drink, like, Morgan works out all the time, and Morgan loves tattoos. So I'm like, okay, Kyle, you're the type that, like, you get with Bae, and whatever Bae likes to do, you want to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like Barry Courtney and Travis Barker. You know what I'm saying? Okay, we get it. I pulled your card. I'm seeing it. And not only that, I'm skipping a beat a little bit, but we're going to get there. But it's just like, then you tattoo her and you put your initial, Kyle, for Kyle, you put a K on her arm. But y'all ain't. Okay. We get a very, like, unnecessary scene of Dorit and Sutton linking up to look at bachelors for Sutton. I don't know why they needed to link up. They don't really seem like good girlfriends like that. And I don't really, nah. We're at the party now, and we meet the new lady, Anne Marie. I was under the impression that she was a housewife, so when they introduced her, I was expecting to get like a small package of like her in a confessional talking about herself, blah blah blah, something like that. We get none of that, so I don't know. Is the lady a friend of or something? I'm pretty sure she's a housewife, so I don't know. I do know that Crystal got a read on her and said that she said that is nosy. So I'm interested to see where that goes. I was really annoyed with Kyle. Like, Kyle feels like the person that tries to, like, round up the troops. And so when the Anne Marie lady gets there, she's really kind of, like, in her ear, like, oh, there's this girl coming that told me that I work out too much. And it's like, nobody ever said that. And then she keeps saying in a confession, like, oh, I feel peer pressure to drink. Nobody ever said that. What people are asking you is, why are you making these drastic changes? Nobody's saying, Kyle, have a drink. Kyle, go eat a hamburger and don't go to the gym. And nobody's saying that. They're asking you questions that you're deflecting from. If you would like an example of how you're deflecting, it's what you're doing right now. Telling people, oh, well, they're peer pressuring me and they're telling me I work out too much. Nobody ever said that. They're asking you questions that you're just simply not answering. So I'm tired of hearing about that. I did think it was really cute that Sutton brought Cynthia. Love me some Cynthia. Love a little crossover moment. I wonder how Cynthia felt like sitting at the table with Beverly Hills drama versus Atlanta drama. I really wish I would have seen more of her reactions, but I understand it's not about her, but it would have been fun. Camille and Denise come. They are lit as hell. That's about all I can really recognize. I definitely can join in on a little bit of that type of kiki, but I didn't watch the seasons with Denise and Camille. I have heard the murmurs, and they seem like really nice, fun girls, and they seem like they know how to come with the shade and with the drama and with the tea. So I'm appreciating them for being here. I can appreciate the moment for what it is, and I can appreciate them for being lit as hell, especially Denise. But other than that, I don't have any of the other tidbits that y'all might have, so I'm gonna apologize. Aside from that, we get, which I thought was interesting because this is Kyle's event and it's at her house, so it's a little more intimate, and they have on gowns, so it just feels like, I don't know, it's like a real dinner party. I mean, it is a real dinner party, but it feels like it's supposed to be very formal, right? But then Sutton and Kyle are having like a sit down talk in the midst of it, like while they're sitting down for dinner. It's like, let's have this talk first. So that was interesting setting for me. Sutton is now acknowledging, like I said, that she was off, like when she was in Vegas and when she and Kyle had the conversation at her house. Her whole issue was that her ex-husband was moving to London, and I guess he was gonna potentially take her son, and so she was dealing with that. She was having a lot going on, and it was a lot of whatever, and she was feeling some type of way about that. So Kyle started mocking her. I understand having a question about how is that really that deep? Like, once we got to the end of it and Sutton was like, well, you know, he's going to London, my son's not going to London, and I'm going to be getting more child support. I can understand being like, okay, well, girl, but we're not talking about right now. We're talking about at that time. And at that time, if that's what she was dealing with, then okay, fine. I don't think I'm going to work overtime to invalidate that for her, especially if I'm supposed to be her friend. So it's very weird, and it went in levels, and it got worse and worse and worse, and more dismissive from Kyle, and she does that to Sutton all the time. And now you can really see, if you hadn't seen it before, if your glasses were not clean, you can really see what Sutton was saying last episode when she's like, Kyle, like, sometimes with you, our dynamic, like, you treat me like the little sister. And I think that means, like, Kyle belittles her and she talks down to her and she pacifies her and she's dismissive towards her. Like, it's very clear, and you can see it so much here and how snarky she is with how she responds. And she's just basically invalidating everything that Sutton's saying and saying, like, you know, that's just an excuse for your behavior. And I don't think that that's fair. Like, I think that we know that maybe this is overly dramatic and irrational, but it's Sutton and she's explaining where she was coming from. So I don't see why as a friend I would need to toss that into her face. So yeah, like Kyle's like, well, that's just an excuse. And Sutton's like, okay, well then what's your excuse? Like, now Sutton is coming back with it. And this is what I feel like happened last episode at Sutton's home. Like, Sutton was having a conversation. Kyle got very kind of like snarky and defensive. And Sutton's just the type where it's like, well, girl, you're not going to give that to me and I'm not about to give it back. So since you're trying to give that, we can give that. You want to go there, we can go there. You know, when Candy told Kim that when they were at that restaurant, go back and watch Atlanta. And it feels like Kyle is kind of teetering this line because I think she feels like Sutton is doing this as a TV thing. And, you know, I don't really have my verdict on that. I'll say that right now. I can't go too much further on that. I'm gonna wait on it. But I feel like Kyle feels like, oh, Sutton doing it for TV. Like, Sutton's coming for me this season. This is what's happening. And so she's reacting in a type of way where it's like, well, do it. Like, do it. If you have something to say, then say it. But ultimately, you know, Sutton walks away. Crystal came in to get them for the dinner because she's like, girl, what's going on? And, you know, again, Kyle is telling a story a side of a story, a perspective of a story that only kind of benefits her. It's such a mischaracterization, and it just happened. So it's like, girl, ain't no way you forgot. But she's basically telling Crystal, like, you know, Sutton's doing that thing where she acts concerned, but it's really because she just wants me. Like, she feels like there's tea I need to tell her. And Crystal, nail on the head. She's like, well, I feel like you guys both do that to each other, but like, I mean, I don't, you know. And I'm like, exactly. Like, you do the same thing to each other. And it's because, Kyle, you think Sutton is doing it from a TV standpoint. Like, your brain is like, you too busy being in that other group of like the Rennas and the Ericas. You feel like the girls are doing something strategic against you for TV, and so you're programmed to feel that way. And I understand, but this ain't what Sutton trying to do, I don't think, right? And my whole thing is, don't be giving her all that smoke, because you wasn't giving the other ladies all that smoke last season when they were involved in that stuff about your sister getting out. Hello. So we get back to the table, and at this point, Sutton is she's feeling her judge now. She's like, "Girl, you started with me, so I've started as well." And Erica's like, "Well, where's the hostess?" And Sutton's like, in denial, obviously. So now it's like, okay, she is shaking the table. Things are getting started. Crystal, of all people, honey, like Crystal is like, hi, like, I'm here. I don't know if you guys knew, but I am one of your newer housewives. My name is Crystal, and I'm here to work as well. So Crystal's like, we need to clear the air. Like, what's the tea? What's going on? And Kyle's very much so like pacifying it. And Crystal's like, well, you guys aren't being honest. And that honestly took my wig back here, because I'm like, yes, like, use Kyle's line on her. Like, Kyle, we're not being honest, babe. Like, it's your turn. Like, you always want everybody to be so honest and chat and say what we have to say. So, Kyle, like, the spotlight's on you. Like, speak. Of course, Kyle goes in on the victim side of the narrative, and she's like, well, I don't like when my friends use veiled threats against me, you know, directing it at Sutton. And she's like, basically, you're acting like, you know, there's something that I need to tell you. So, like, if you have something to say, if you know something, then you might as well just say it. To Kyle's credit, okay, yes, fine. But I really do just feel like Kyle's coming at it from such a defensive place. And I don't feel like Sutton is really trying to put her on blast like that. Like, even with the ammunition, even with the hostility in the conversation, even with Kyle being very rude to Sutton, Sutton still won't come out and say, like, girl, is your marriage crumbling or not? Like, it's still not happening. Even with the extra unnecessary 15 minutes of the episode, it still did not happen. But Sutton's just telling her, like, girl, you started this. Like, I was just trying to open up to you, and you were mocking me. And Kyle's like, I wasn't mocking you. Like, you're making excuses. And she's like, but you're deflecting, Kyle. Like, you're not talking about the tea. Like, you're not talking about it. And this part really kind of gagged the hell out of me, because, again, Kyle starts to try to, like, round the troops. And she's trying to bring Anne-Marie in. Anne-Marie did come in, but I'm not too mad at it necessarily, but we'll chat. But, you know, she's trying to bring it in, and she's like, well, Sutton, you're bringing up all this stuff about me working out and me eating, but you don't even eat. And I'm like, I'm wondering, like, is this going to be a moment where she's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like, that was like a, but no, my girl doubles down in her confessional talking about Sutton be pushing her food around the plate. And I'm like, that's a serious thing. Like, it felt very, particular group of people that would have that type of conversation in jest and throw it in somebody's face. But I don't know anybody that plays like that personally. Like, I don't even know that I can move forward in a conversation like that. That's a bit too much. I don't really know what the fallout of that was, because we didn't really get much of it. I assume that they probably cut that out, because Sutton very much so was just looking like, oh. And I don't know where that went. But Anne-Marie cuts in, and she's like, you know, as friends, you should be able to, she kind of excused herself into, which I liked, so I appreciate that. But she's like, you know, as friends, you should be able to say whatever you need to say to each other, but y'all ain't saying nothing. And I'm like, correct. Like, they ain't saying nothing. They ain't said a thing, okay? Again, Sutton still, even after being accused basically of not eating, not even basically, factually, she still is like, it's something going on in your personal life. Still not specific. And Anne Marie's like, but girl, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean? So Garcelle has to come on in and help, which I felt like about, because they already beat on Garcelle and saying like, oh, you always have to take up for Sutton and you have to handle Sutton's business. And I've never agreed with that. Never. But I'm like, now that you're coming in and you are finishing off her argument with Kyle, and she was even looking at Sutton the whole time she said it, like she was trying to usher her through the conversation, that made me feel like, But Garcelle didn't even, from what we saw, Garcelle didn't even really characterize it well, right? Like, she brings up the ring thing, which, again, I think was important to them. It was not important to me. And I don't know that it was important to anybody. And I don't think that Garcelle wanted to necessarily talk about the ring, because she did say that doesn't matter. But she was trying to usher in a different conversation that she just did not do correctly. But she asks about the ring. They talk about it in circles forever till we get to the point where it's like, Kyle's like, but I bought that ring, so it really doesn't matter. And they're like, okay, well, fine. End of story, it is what it is. But it's really not, because we still don't have the tea about what's going on with your marriage. And that was really the real question that nobody seems to want to ask. But Kyle just, for me, felt like she was not done, because like Garcelle had came in, did a little bit of and didn't really get anywhere. Sutton was pulling back. She's like, okay, fine, like it is in the topic, like you bought the ring yourself, it's resolved. She said it about 3 times. And Kyle's like, what? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, are you trying to insinuate that my husband cheated on me? And I don't know that anybody was saying that. Like, when Sutton said, did I say that? I genuinely think she meant that, because nobody said that. There could be so many other like issues in the marriage, right? But I think they're just trying to figure out, like, all these weird things are happening. Like, what is the something? It got to be something. So that part, I was like, eh. But then finally, you know, she starts cracking open, baby, like an egg, because she's just like, you know, I also feel like, she's like, and also, you know, like when you have your point, you're still going, and the other side is quiet, you're like, and another thing, that's Kyle. And she's like, you know, I brought this up at the retreat that, you know, we didn't have our best year. And I'm like, stop there. Flag on the play, because I'm like, that is so vague, Kyle. Like, you're acting like you opened up and told everybody just this like fantastic thing, and it's like, well, they're just supposed to leave it at that, right? She's just like, you know, that isn't that enough? Like, is that not enough for you guys? And it's like, no, because what does that even mean? Like, oh, we had a rough year. Like, I even said that when, like, that's just like, that's in the Housewives handbook of BS. Like, that's just something you say, we had a tough year, but now we're working on it. What does that mean? She feels like it's a low blow that they're even bringing up this stuff right now. But it's like, no, we're trying to get some context as to why you're filming with Morgan on this current season of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and tattooing K on her arm, but you're married. It's a little weird. And the final tea comes out in the final 2 seconds, which could have come 30 minutes ago. But this, you know, whatever. Maybe y'all enjoyed the extended episode. I didn't understand it. But, you know, she says basically it shouldn't be a problem if I don't want to drink. Because, you know, if I drink, I wake up the next day and I feel depressed. And I don't really have time to be depressed right now. And I'm like, okay, well, now we're getting somewhere, you know, but not necessarily, because we got it to be continued. So, you know, I'm interested to see, after all of that, nothing, if we get something in the next episode. But it more so seems like we'll probably just keep getting more comedic relief from Denise Richards, which I also don't necessarily mind. So, you know, we will see. I enjoyed the episode. I just think it was too long and it was too drawn out. And they could have, you know, condensed quite a bit. But okay. And the dinner party just wasn't as explosive as I expected it to be, especially with all of the guests that were there. And the not eating comment really kind of took me. So, you know, I don't know necessarily how I feel about it. But it was something. And we will see what happens next episode.